and it's done. Now you got your average estimate. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how you can create a property value estimator with n8n. Let's get to it. So we're going to be building this from scratch. And so before I start any workflow, I typically like doing like a rough outline of what I kind of want my workflow to do. So kind of right now, what I'm thinking about is ideally we have a CRM where we have all of our properties coming in, and we are going to receive a new lead. So a new lead comes into our pipeline. If we're using PPL, PPC, direct mail, whatever it is, and someone reaches out to us, it funnels into our CRM, and then whatever CRM we're using is gonna ping our webhook. So, and then from there, it's gonna fire off our n8n workflow, and then it's going to shoot back the value of the property to our CRM of choice. And so now that record in our CRM now has a dirty value or an estimate of the property's value. So we'll do CRM here. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So if we jump over now to n8n, if you don't have an n8n account, there's a link in the description. You can create an n8n account, but n8n is just a no code, low code solution to do a lot of these tasks that jump from different applications. So you can think of this as akin to Zapier. So when we start manually, pretty much whatever instantiates a workflow is called a trigger. So there's a lot of triggers you can see here: on schedule, on webhook call, which is ideally where we want to be. But for right now, let's just manually trigger this. So now we have this manual trigger. And so now we're going to add a node to it. And so kind of what I'm thinking right now is we're going to want to do an HTTP request. And so this is us reaching out to another application to get data from it. And we're probably going to want to do 3 of these. So I'm kind of thinking something like one up here for Zillow. We're going to do another one for, actually don't want that there. We're actually going to control C and V, and then we're going to bring this over. So one for Zillow, one for Redfin, one for Realtor, and I would say one for PropStream, but PropStream doesn't have a public API and they aren't willing to give out an API because I've asked. So we got these 3 now. Rename these. Okay. And so now we're going to go through and kind of fill out how to get information from these. But as far as testing purposes, since we have a execute workflow, as of right now, when I click this node, it's just going to fire off to these nodes, but there's no data to feed it. So just for testing, we're going to actually jump in the way of these 2 nodes, and we're going to add a set field or an edit fields. And so essentially what that's doing, it's just like we can manually set a field to then feed into the next one. And we're going to do that for the very beginning because we want to feed it test property data. All right, so we have this edit field right now, and I'm going to go to Zillow. All right, so I looked up Austin. Let me find owner posted. All right, so cool. So I'm looking at FSBOs. So let's see here. Let's actually do a property that I'm going to use that I'll probably call. Sort this by newest. This one right here. 270. Oh, wow. It's the one I was going to click on. Sweet. So this is 270. What's the zestimate? Doesn't have a zestimate according to this. Oh, it's not available. Well, that's not going to help us because we want to see some zestimate data. Why is there no zestimate data for any of this? Oh, I know why. Austin is a non-disclosure state. Yes, it is. This makes sense. All right, let's go to Georgia. All right, cool. All right, so we're in Georgia. I'm going to deselect all these. I just want to see FSBOs. Let's do this one. 49 days on, 179. There is no zestimate, so that's not going to really help us when we test this out. 275. So we have 273,000 as this estimate for this 275. So I'm just going to copy this address because I want it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back. I'm going to go to my edit fields and manually map this. So I'm going to add a field. I'm going to name this address. And so now this is what the other nodes that come after this one are going to reference. They're going to reference this address field. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this value that we had. This is the address. And so for right now, it's always going to go to that Atlanta address. Next thing we're going to want to do is populate these HTTP request nodes. And so the first one we're going to do is Zillow. And the actual endpoint we're going to use is a Rapid API endpoint. And so if you don't know what Rapid API is, there's a link in the description where you can go to it. But Rapid API is essentially just a marketplace of scrapers that you can access and then just use it for anything you want. So as soon as you make an account, you go to Discovery, and at the very top, you can search for APIs. And so what I'm going to do right now is just search for Zillow. It seems like there's a few of them. We can use any of these, but we'll just use the first one. And so you'll see here that it gives you your API key, and we're going to need that in a little bit. And the API key is how you're actually going to be able to access this scraper. If you don't use the API key, you're never going to be able to access it. I see here on the left-hand side, there's an extensive list of endpoints, but all we really want is a zestimate. So I see here zestimate history and then zestimate. So I'm going to click on zestimate and I'm going to look at the params. So these parameters are query parameters or things we're going to have to feed it so that it can actually know what to give us back. Zillow has a ZPID. This is an internal Zillow ID. It says it's optional, and that's not what we're using to query it, so I'm getting rid of that. We have address, which is good. This is what we want. So I'm going to jump over to the right, and you see this is the code that we're going to be using to call it. Now, there's a lot of different things. We're going to use shell, and the reason we're going to use shell is because it's a curl. So then when we copy snippet, we can actually jump back to n8n. And when we go into our Zillow HTTP node, there's a button up here called import curl. And then we can just drop that in there. So import. And so now you see the URL is filled out. Zestimate, it is a get request. And then if we go to the headers, you see we have X Rapid API host. And then it has the actual API name, which is good. We can leave that the way it is. Then down here, you see it has the value, our API key. Now, this is good, but we want to make this better because if you were to hand this off to a client, a business, you're to sell this workflow, you don't want your API key in here. So what you'll do is you'll copy this. We will get rid of this field and we will add an authentication and we'll go to generic credentials and then we'll just do a basic authentication. And we're not going to do that, actually. Let me think about this. So here we see that it's a header. So what we'll do is a header authentication, which is perfect. So what I'm going to need to do is actually remember X Rapid API key. Cool. So we're going to go header. We're going to go create new credential. You're going to see the values there. So I just pasted the API key in it. If I remember correctly, it's X Rapid API -key. And we are going to name this Rapid API key. Sweet. So now that works. So now we have our API key tied to this so we can call it successfully. And then I think that's pretty much it. We can just run this. So I'm actually going to disconnect these two. If you see here, there's this little execution step. We can click on that to run this node. And if nothing's ran before it, it'll run all those nodes before it until it gets to the one you want. So I'll run this because there we go. Perfect. So we'll see here that the green arrow shows that everything's gone correctly. And now the next one to run is the Zillow HTTP node. So if I were to click into here, we'll see that the field that we set earlier called address now has this address here in Atlanta, Georgia. And so now I just want to execute this step, see if anything comes back. So forbidden, you're not subscribed to this API. Something I forgot to mention is that any of these scrapers that you want to do, you actually have to subscribe to them. So at the top right, you can subscribe to test. So you can subscribe to use it. So if we jump over here, we see that a lot of these scrapers or APIs require you to pay. Now, they all normally have a free plan, and this one gives you 100 requests a month. And then from there on out, it's going to charge you 4 cents a request. If you pay for Pro, you get 13,000 a month, and then so on and so forth. And then you're rate limited 10 requests per minute. We're going to use the free plan because we like free things. Okay, so now that we're subscribed to it, if I were to run this, this should work. Cool. Zip ID cannot be blank. Property URL cannot be blank. And so I forgot to send the address in. So let's jump back and take a look at the params. And let me scroll down. Zestimate, params. Okay, it's called address. That's what the thing is. So let's jump back. Okay. So actually, when I looked at the documentation, this is actually not a body parameter. This is a query parameter. And so if we were to look here, jump to the parameters, these are query parameters. If I were to type in 123 Main Street, you'll see here that in the URL, it's actually adding in a query. So that means we're going to do it here. So we're going to type an address, and then we're going to do the same thing we just did. We're going to drop in this, and then we're not sending a body. So we have query parameters that we're sending, and then we also have the headers. So now this should work. Sweet. So now we have the value. And so it says it's $273,600 from Zillow. And if I were to go look at Zillow right now for this property, 273,600. Sweet. So we got that. So that's running perfectly. Now we're going to wire this up to Redfin and do the exact same thing for Redfin. So I'm going to type in Redfin, there's a bunch, .com data. This was updated 15 days ago. This was six months ago. Yeah, so we're going to do this one because it's recent. Estimate. Yeah, see, the listing ID here is optional, which is true because most of the time the property isn't listed. They're reaching out to us for whatever reason, and it's not listed. So let's do property ID. You can get it from search, rent. Can it only get it from that? Autocomplete. So let's see. Well, that's not helpful. Usually this eye icon has a tooltip that tells you what the endpoint does. I want to say this ID here is what it needs. So like this is query New York. What if I just put the property address, like the whole property address in here? Oh, whoops. All right, let's try that. So we're going to try this one. We're going to subscribe. Same rule here. You get 100 free. Okay, and so I'm going to copy this curl. We were close, but that typically happens. So it's good that this happened because we have to have patience for things like this. I'm going to jump down. I'm going to remove that. We're going to go to auth, generic, and in the header. Everything else is good. Now, the only thing is this address needs to change, and we don't even know if this is going to work because they didn't show this in the docs to be the way they do it. Let's see. It did something. Message location is not available, but it gave us an ID. We're going to do another HTTP node now because it gave us an ID, and I believe we can use that ID. We can use that ID now in the property estimate. So let's go to that one. So you have the parameters. See, so there's this property ID here. I'm feeling like we can use it. So I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to do the curl. We're going to snag that one. All right, so we're going to jump back here. Import curl. Once again, get rid of that. Header, sweet. So there's property ID here. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to drag and drop that in there. That prefix 1 is worrying me, but let's see. That didn't work. Let me see something though. So if I were to type in 248-36697. So this worked. Wow. It gave us back just a plethora of attributes, but with very poor definition of the attributes. So this is the estimate, but I don't necessarily know. Wow, this is miserable. What's here? Predicted value. That's good enough for me. So this works. It's just that ID up front. We can't just have the one. We need to somehow eliminate that. So we're going to do some magic here, some JSON magic. So I'm going to do curly braces and I'm going to type in JSON, and this is an ID. So right now, first off, it's a string. So that's already a problem. Then we got to convert it to an ID, and we also got to get rid of the 1. So what I'm thinking here is what we're going to do. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to bring it in here. And now I'm going to do, here we go. Let me see. Replace all. Returns a string with all occurrence of pattern replaced by replacement. It's not really what I'm looking for, although that's pretty good. Replace. Extracts a fragment of the string at the given position. So 0 to 5. So I see dot slice 0, 5. And when they do that, it just from start to where? See, the end though might be different. End string optional. That's good. The position to select up to. The character at the end position is not included. Negative numbers select from the end of the string. If omitted, we'll extract to the end of the string. Perfect. So what I'm actually going to say is don't start from 0, 1. I'm going to say 2 because this looks like it's 0 based. We see it right there. 2. So it omitted the 1 and the underscore. Perfect. So we're going to do 2, and that's it. We're actually not going to do anything else. Again, I'm under the pretense that this prefixed 1 underscore is always going to be that way. Whether it's 1, 3, 6, whatever, it's always going to be that single digit and then an underscore. So now this works, which is great. So now we have the HTTP, and actually we'll test it again just to at least solidify that. Sweet. So we're going to scroll down, and now we know what field we can get it. Predicted value. Sweet. So we got predicted value. We'll rename this redfin value. Cool. So now all we need to do is realtor.com. Realtor search. Okay. So it shows details. It doesn't actually have a estimated endpoint, like an estimate for property value. Okay, listing ID is optional. Property ID is mandatory. We can live with that. So property ID can be retrieved from property search by, search rent, or search sold, or search MLS ID. See, that's what the last one said, but we still found a way to do it with autocomplete. I'm going to follow that same process because it seemed to work for us. This looks identical to Redfin's. Is this Redfin? Am I going crazy? No, that says Realtor. Okay. I'm going to say we do the same thing. So let's grab that. So let's go to copy snippet. We're going to jump. Oh, we're going to jump here. I'm going to go to import curl. We're going to do the same thing we've been doing. Was I doing the wrong one? Why does this look identical? No, it says Redfin. Okay. Yeah, we're going to do the same thing. Generic, and then we're going to go to header, rapid API key. Let's wire this up so we can see our input from the edit fields node. Now we have that. I'm getting rid of New York. I'm going to do this. Sweet. Execute it. This always seems to get me. And we're going to do subscribe to test. 150 a month this time. They're a little bit more generous than the other ones, so that's great. Great. Let's execute. Sweet. You know, it's interesting. This is actually giving us the coordinates. Okay, it gave us a little bit more information than the Redfin one did. It has an ID. Oh, okay, perfect. It has its own ID. That's way better. Sweet. So we're actually going to do this again. I'm going to copy that, put that here, and I'm going to connect it to this one. And what we're going to do now is go back to Rapid API. And then I'm going to do the same thing we did last time. Actually, I want to see if there's any other ones. No. Okay. We're going to go to details. We're going to grab this one. Oh, there's an example response here. Okay. Probably has what we need, so I shouldn't think too deep into it. And we're going to go to import curl. Bring that in. Once again, get rid of our API key being in the public, and we're going to actually hide it behind this header auth. Sweet. And so now for property ID, we're going to want to do the same thing. Listing ID is optional, so we don't have to include it. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to now go to ID. Here we go. Sweet. So now we're always going to get that ID. Let's see if this works. I'm pretty confident this is going to work. Sweet. So now the only thing is to hope that the estimated property values in this mess of JSON. We're actually going to search estimate. I just noticed this. Oh, that's a bummer. It doesn't seem, maybe it highlights it. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is great. Estimate, current estimates. Okay, Realtor's the one that has the three. Quantarium, collateral, and CoreLogic. And so, and then these are all historical values. Now, what one could do is pretty much just grab these three, get them all out, and average them in a code node, and you can get the average of that. But for simplicity, what I think I'm going to do is just grab what seems to be the lowest one. So we're going to do CoreLogic just to be conservative for right now. And so Cool. So we have that. Now what I'm going to want to do is we have 3 data points to go off of: Realtor, Redfin, and Zillow. And I'm actually going to feed all these into a code node and actually average them. I just didn't want to do it twice, one for the Realtor ones and then one for them overall. I just think that's kind of overkill. But if you can get an average of all 3, I think you kind of have like a good, decent estimate of the property's value. Okay, so I don't know what the summarize field did. It actually ran it 3 times. It runs it 3 times because it's actually being fed 3 different workflows. We don't want it to run 3 times. We want it to run once. So what we have to do now is actually merge everything so that it's just one input. Right now it's saying, hey, I'm getting 3 inputs. So I'm going to run this 3 times. And I definitely don't want that. So I think what we can do is implement a node between it that will be a merge node and kind of keep everything together. But before I do that, for testing purposes, I don't want to keep running these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the data. And so this is just going to hold the data there, so I don't actually have to keep running and calling these APIs. So I'm going to pin all this data, pin, sweet. So now we are going to delete the connection here, move you over there, and I'm going to do a merge. And so it merges multiple input streams, which is exactly what we want. We're going to do 3. Put that there. Oop. I'm going to move this one in the middle. Okay, sweet. So if I were to now jump in here and feed it to summarize, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually execute this step. So now you're going to see it's actually like got all the data between all 3. So okay, append, because I was looking at this and it kind of threw me off. Output items of each input one after another. That's not what I want. I want to combine combine items with the same field values, combine items based on their order. Yeah, that's cool. I'm cool with that. I just want it to be combined so it can be one thing. Consider enabling include all unpaired items in options or check your inputs. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. There's going to be a bunch that aren't. Cool. So now it's one item, which is what I want. I don't want this to get called 3 times. So we're going to do edit fields. And we're going to do manual mapping. And so I'm going to add 3 fields. So I'm going to call this zestimate, Redfin. Yeah, let's do Redfin estimate, realtor estimate. And these are all number values. And all of these are expressions. So we got this estimate first and foremost, goated. And then we jump down. Now this one reminds me of Redfin. This is what the Redfin one looks like. It's right somewhere here. Okay. Then we got the Redfin predicted value. Perfect. And then we have realtor, which I'm going to have to dig for this one. Estimate. There we go. And I think we agreed that we're going to use the core logic because it seemed to be the most conservative. So we're going to do that. Perfect. Sweet. So now we have these 3 values. Keep that there. Let me pin this just to keep everything current. Now we see we have zestimate, Redfin estimate, and realtor estimate. And we have these values here, which is perfect. Let me pin that. Now I'm going to do a code node. And so we're going to add 2 fields to this, or just 2 lines of code that you can just copy and paste into this. And so now this should just be taking the average of our 3 fields. And this is assuming these 3 values are always going to be here. So if I were to execute, now we're going to see that we have zestimate, Redfin estimate, realtor estimate, and then the average estimate of the 3. And so now, and I'll rename this average. And so this code is now going to get the average. And then from here, now what you can do is send this off somewhere. So you can send this back to your CRM, maybe Go High Level, Podio. You can shoot this off over there, or you can even do a Excel sheet. So if you were to go to Google Sheets, you have a few options here. You can append to a row in a sheet. If you already have a bunch of properties, you can do it that way. Append or update row in sheet, which is the same thing. And this is actually the one I would prefer. So if you were to do this, you can do a sheet within a document or a document itself. And then the operation is append or update row. You would have to apply your credentials. It's super easy. It's literally just signing in. That's one way you can do it. You can send it to a Google Sheet or you can send it to a database. So like, let's say you actually have a Postgres database that you have all this tied to. You can send it to that, to a specific table. And yeah, so I think this is all ready to go. The only thing is now, if you were to actually take this to production, what we're going to want to do is put this on a webhook. So I would pretty much just have test. You have, when it comes to webhooks, you can do test this in a test environment and then also in a production environment. And so once this is all tied up and with a bow on it, you would change it to production and you would use that webhook. And then the webhook would go here and you would actually tie that here instead of using this manual trigger. Let's try. And then of course you would remove this field once that, because the idea is that what's coming from your webhook, that webhook is going to be waiting for your CRM to send data to it. And so what's that CRM going to send? It's going to send the property address. So you're not really going to be needing this edit fields that node that we have here. And so just to test this all out one more time, I'm going to unpin all this data. I'm going to look for a different property. So this one, coming soon. Zestimate's 276. Cool. So now if I were to execute workflow, I'm going to see it's going to go to each of these. It's going to run every single one. And it's done. Now you got your average estimate. So that's how you can get back of the napkin value for your property using n8n.